Well, I've been busy. Since the last update in July, I've more or less rewritten the entire character controller from scratch and scrapped a lot of stuff that was giving me a headache. What I've been left with is a very different playing game. Starting off with the character controller, all the physics-driven hoverboard stuff has been removed entirely. It's been replaced with just a model on top of a collider. I had to test multiple different colliders and collider positions, and I settled on an upright capsule collider. It seemed to give the best results in terms of both turning and keeping to the track and reacting to obstacles there. There's no real change to the hierarchy of the hoverboard. The character is still a child of the hoverboard model, and the hoverboard model is still a child of the actual player controller, and it's just been offset off the ground a little bit. More or less the same as before. The trick system remains unchanged. The right stick or arrow keys on the keyboard continue to rotate the player, but I will probably be replacing this with a deeper trick system at some point in the future. The largest change so far has been the complete abandonment of the waypoint system. The player now has full control over their turning and speed. They can turn around, they can go forward. It is no longer being driven by a series of checkpoints throughout the map. Now onto the physics. The player matches the normal of the surface they're on. In other words, they match the general angle and elevation of the surface that they're on. Gravity is now relative to the player and will generally try to keep them attached to the ground where possible. If the player is not attached to the ground or they're in the air for a certain amount of time, the gravity will reset back to normal. With the change in the physics, the track design now allows for corkscrews and loops, plus the track no longer needs to be flat. This gives me a lot more leeway into what kind of tracks I can make here and can give me some different level design ideas. The most recent addition to the game is Rails. It's still very much in development. I had to update Unity to use the spline tool, but now I can add Rails as needed. Although the spline animate script that comes built in with the spline tool didn't quite give me the results I was looking for, so I ended up having to write custom code to do this. There are some issues with the implementation, but it does work most of the time. Loop-to-loop rails have some issues with where the player is facing upwards, but it does work. The most recent addition to this mechanic is the jumping between rails. It has UI for it and it works mostly smoothly. It works by shooting out spear casts from the sides of the player and then using that to determine the endpoint and then drawing an arc from the player to the endpoint. In terms of further work, on the rails, I would like to change it so that they're slightly easier to work with and can follow curves instead of flat lines. I'm looking to build some test levels in the future with proper obstacles and all the mechanics that I currently have put in. I would also like to figure out a way of using the spline tool to build the track itself so I can remove Blender from the equation here. Building the levels in Blender isn't too difficult, but I want to be able to control how long they are within Unity rather than having to go in and out of Blender. That's all for the current state of things with the game, although I'm not done talking yet. I need to address the Unity problem. Now obviously I don't make any damn money at all, so these install charges are irrelevant to me. But the fact Unity made this change so suddenly, and has subsequently backpedaled a lot of it, does concern me. If any game I work on does make money, I'm likely getting buggered. As such, I'm back in the business of looking for a new set of tools to use, and the next video you'll see from me will be about that experience. I'll still finish this project and get Cybersurfer to where I want it to be, but I want to look at new options, and quite frankly I've gotten sick of Unity's bullshit. So what's the plan for this video? Well, I'm going to make the simplest game possible in a variety of engines and document the things I like and don't like. And the game I'll be making is Pong. It's basically the hello world of video game design, and generally the jumping off point for learning any new engine or framework. I'm going to try and stream the whole experience on Twitch and then compile it into a video for YouTube sometime later. And just one last note on Cybersurfer. I'll be backporting my current code in order to make the hoverboard in that game more fun to play, and removing the hoverboard part to make it a more standard sand surfing board. A comment on one of my past videos requested that I do a video on building a surfing type board instead of a hoverboard, and now I'm in the position to do that, so just hold on a little longer and I'll get around to it. As usual, social links in the description, follow and watch me on Twitch. I'll see you next time, whenever that is.